Do you want to learn how to earn commissions of up to 20% by laundering millions of foreign dollars?
Well, we can't help you with that. But among the many IT problems we solve, Barracuda's email security solutions keep email phishing attacks like this from entering your business network and any valuable data from leaking out. Reclaim your network like 150,000 other businesses have. To learn more about stopping email-borne threats, visit barracuda.com/email.
National League Central rivals go head-to-head this weekend when the Pirates face the Cubs at Wrigley.
Swing and a miss. He stuck him out.
The pregame at 3 Eastern, first pitch at 4. Saturday on ESPN Radio and the new ESPN app.
Coming up on the Best of the Paul Finebaum Show podcast, the big swagoo, Marcus Spears, stops by, and Hugh from Oxford. Yes, Ole Miss coach Hugh Freeze makes a surprise phone call to the show, plus your best calls. It's the Best of the Finebaum Show podcast, and it starts right now.
This is the Best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
We begin with this conversation about satellite camps. You remember the story a year ago when Penn State seemed to invade this part of the country. Other Big Ten coaches are doing the nerve of the Big Ten, huh? Coming down here, and Nick Saban not very happy about it, and neither is the SEC commissioner. We begin our conversation about this with Tom Van Huren from ESPN. He covers recruiting. He also covers the Big Ten. And Tom, many thanks for joining us on the program. Appreciate your time. For those who may not really understand what this is, I'll let an expert like you explain to the average person, including me, what this is and what the controversy is all about.
Sure. Yeah, thanks for having me. The satellite camps are pretty interesting. You mentioned Penn State last year, and basically what's happening, last year the Penn State coaches partnered with Georgia State for their one-day camp. So the Penn State coaches traveled down to Georgia State and actually worked the camp with the Georgia State coaches. So some of the bigger-name prospects who probably wouldn't normally be going out to that Georgia State camp came out just because Penn State was there. They got a chance to work with the Penn State coaches. They got a chance to actually be in person and be evaluated in person by those coaches. So some of the Big Ten coaches kind of noticed that, and this year I think where we're seeing some of the bigger uproar coming now, because we heard a little bit about it last year with Penn State, but not a huge fuss. But now Michigan recently announced that they're going on what they're calling a swarm tour, where in June they're going to start in Indianapolis. They're going to head to Prattville, Alabama. They're going to go to USF's one-day camp in Tampa, Florida. Then head to Pennsylvania, Houston, Dallas, Mission Viejo, California, Fresno, California, and then head back to Detroit. And that's all within a 9-day span. They're going to be able to coach out at every one of those camps, and all the prospects in that area that have heard about the Michigan coaches coming out to those camps, they're going to try to get those kids out there as well. So the main controversy from the SEC and the ACC coaches, they're not allowed to do what the Big Ten is doing. They can't go and travel out to camps outside of a 50-mile radius. So for Michigan to be able to travel to California or Alabama, even, or Texas, the SEC and ACC coaches are seeing that as an advantage for those coaches, something that they can't take advantage of, and I think that's why they're upset about it now, because they can't do the same thing that the Big Ten coaches are doing.
And Tom, what evidence have we seen? I realize it's early that this seems to be helping, aiding, even abetting the Big Ten coaches.
That's the big question, because it's so new and it's so fresh that I don't think we've seen immediate results from this. We mentioned Penn State last year, Georgia State camp. We didn't really see a lot of results out of that, and by results, meaning landing commitments or landing big commitments that maybe they wouldn't have gotten had they not gone to that camp. So I think it's probably a few years out, because the main impact for Michigan to go out to California in these camps is probably going to be with younger prospects who aren't going to commit until a few years from now. So I don't know that we'll see the immediate impact right away. But, in my opinion, I don't really see it as a huge advantage, because if you look at what recruits are really making decisions off of, it's a comfort level with the coaches. An opportunity to make it to the NFL, an opportunity to play, an opportunity to win championships. So, in my opinion, the biggest advantage from this is probably on the coach's side. It gives them more time, that extra opportunity to evaluate prospects in person, either a target that they've already offered or maybe a guy that they didn't know about or haven't seen in person. and wanted to see him in person. Now maybe they'll get that opportunity to evaluate him and actually coach him. I think that's probably the main benefit for me from my vantage point. So I see why the SEC coaches are upset, because they can't do it, and coaches don't like to be at a disadvantage, but I don't think it's a huge deal in the grand scheme of recruiting and landing top prospects.
Tom, hold the thought for just one moment. Let me bring in Michael Casagrande with AL.com. He has written about this. He's certainly been able to ascertain Saban's view, the new incoming commissioner of the SEC, Greg Sankey's as well. Michael, thanks for the time, and let's pick it up from where Tom left it. What's Nick Saban's big objection?
Well, I think it's just the fact that they can't do it as well. If Alabama could go up to Michigan and do the same thing, I think it wouldn't be as even big as a thing for him. But these are fertile recruiting grounds, and SEC has obviously done very well with the players from this area. So for a guy like Harbaugh, who's obviously a big name, a lot of excitement around him, for him to come down here, I think it might just create a little bit more buzz for a program like Michigan's, where Alabama's been so in control.
Yeah, I'm sure some people watching around the country, particularly outside of the SEC footprint, are getting a good chuckle out of Nick Saban being mad about someone else finding an advantage, since he has been the king of finding loopholes. What has the commissioner, the incoming commissioner, Greg Sankey, had to say about this?
Yeah, well, first off with Saban, I asked him about it the other day in Huntsville, and he wasn't spitting fire. He wasn't screaming and yelling, hollering about it, but you could tell it probably bothered him a little bit. But with Sankey, he was talking about just thinking about the meetings coming up in Destin, talking about the issue, possibly raising it as an NCAA thing to make it an even playing field for all the conferences. And he kind of joked about, I think Mike Slive even joked about, maybe we need to go up to State College and have a satellite camp up there, and kind of threatening, saying that, I don't think they would like it too much if the SEC did that up in the Big Ten territory. So, we'll see.
What's the likelihood of the SEC making that possible?
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure they would discuss it, and I'm sure they're probably more pushing for an NCAA-wide rule that would fit the SEC, so none of the schools, none of the conferences can do what the Big Ten is doing. But do I see Nick Saban going to Michigan, going to Ohio to open up a camp? I really honestly don't see it happening, but, you never know with these changing recruiting days.
Michael, on that subject of the Big Ten, I know you were there when Saban was asked and acted like he didn't know what the question meant. The question was really about Braxton Miller the other night, but he played dumb. Anything new on the Braxton Miller situation?
I don't see a whole lot more to it. There's been a few more reports about it, but he was visiting his friend Dre Priest in Tuscaloosa at one point. I haven't heard a whole lot more about it, but you never know with these kinds of things. I mean, a year ago, Jacob Coker was already committed to come to Alabama at this time, but it's not unheard of to go and try to find somebody if you're not completely satisfied with an option you have a quarterback.
Tom, let me close with you. And again, I'm trying not to be too cynical here of SEC coaches being upset about something that the Big Ten may have beaten them to the punch. Not really beaten them, obviously. They have the ability to do it. But what kind of chatter, if any, is this getting up there that Nick Saban, the SEC incoming commissioner, and others are not happy about Harbaugh and James Franklin and others invading their end of the country?
Well, I think the biggest term that's been used from the ACC and SEC coaches and in talks and when they're upset about it is that this is a loophole that the Big Ten is utilizing, and I don't think the coaches up here see it that way. I don't think they see it as a loophole. And to Michael's point about the coaches, the SEC coaches being upset about this, no one was upset when Iowa did it in Chicago, because it didn't impact them and it didn't affect them. So now that they're coming, as he mentioned, they're coming onto their turf and their soil, it impacts how they recruit and who they recruit. So now you're starting to see the coaches giving some pushback. So I don't think the Big Ten coaches really care that anyone's upset about it, because they're well within their rights and well within the rules to take advantage of this. And why wouldn't they? Because if the SEC and ACC coaches could do that as well, I'm willing to bet that they'd be taking every advantage of these camps as well. So I don't think they're too upset about it. They're not losing much sleep over it, that's for sure.
Tom Van Haren and Michael Casagrande joining us. Thank you both, gentlemen. Appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Good stuff. Really appreciate it. So there it is. Nick Saban, obviously at the center of this. He always is. Nick Saban said recently, if we're going to travel all over the country to have satellite camps, you know how ridiculous is that? I mean, we're not allowed to go to all-star games, but now we're going to have satellite camps all over the country, so it doesn't really make sense. Anyway, Nick Saban upset. How about that, man? Breaking news. Alert the media.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
Chris is in Nashville. Thanks, Chris. Good afternoon.
How you doing?
I'm well.
First of all, I just wanted to note that I'm a Trojan fan from Southern California, and I'm transplanting in Tennessee.
Okay.
And as far as the satellite camps, I don't see anything wrong with it. Me personally being a youth camp, a youth coach, and also being affiliated with NCSA, that these children need the best opportunity that they can get to go to some of these other schools, because you have some kids living in, like, let's say in East Tennessee, living in Sweetwater, Tennessee, or someplace like that, where they have dreams of going to UT, but they might not ever get that opportunity. But if a school from the north comes and sees that talent, they're probably a better chance of maybe not one kid or a few kids getting out. We have to remember these are educational centers, and it's about higher learning, not just a farm for the NFL. And seeing how these a lot of these pros are getting these big contracts, and it's like they haven't learned anything in college. It's like to go there for a minute and then to get in the pros, we losing the whole side of college. And to quickly wrap it up, as far as James Franklin, I wouldn't let none of my kids play for James Franklin. He's got 2 kids about to be sentenced tomorrow for rape. So it also gives a lot of these parents the chance to meet these coaches. I think it's going to even up the game, to be truthful, because USC never has any fear of UCLA and vice versa when it comes to recruiting. But we can't lose sight of the goal, which is graduation. And thank you for your time, Paul. Fight hard.
Thank you very much. Lance is up next. What's up, Lance?
What's up, Tom? Hey, man, I want to talk about the Gators a little bit. Will Greer, man, I know everybody's been sleeping on the Gators, but, man, we talked about Jim McElwain before and the job he did with quarterbacks in the past. I mean, I know we're seeing we ain't got the numbers, but I just ain't buying the Gators flunking out like people think this year, man. And I really enjoyed the Dante Fowler interview, because I thought he really pointed out how different part of the season could be, but I guess every team could do that. Man, I'm really high on Florida this year, man.
I tell you what, Lance, I hate to do this. We need to get you on the phone that we can understand. It sounds like you're going through a Wendy's drive-through there. So let's get you back on when we can hear you and make out more than every 4th or 5th word that you were saying. Brian is up next. Hey, Brian. Good afternoon.
Hey, Paul. Good to talk to you. Thanks for taking my call.
You bet.
Hey, regarding the satellite camp thing, I was in the local papers this morning down here, too, and then Yahoo also today, and I tend to agree with something I think you alluded to a few minutes ago. I just think this is much ado about nothing. Now, maybe it's because I live in Florida, and, we're kind of used to everybody and their mother traipsing around here on the recruiting trail. But if these things are like a one-day only, I just don't see what the big deal is. Anybody that's considering a top-tier program or any SEC program is going to be on the radar of just about everybody. And if it's for one day, and you mentioned, I think USF is going to be hosting one, if it's such a bad idea, why are they letting another school use their school property to have a camp? I mean, last time I checked, USF is trying to recruit. But the bottom line is, all Saban or anybody has to do is find out where these camps are, send somebody down, one of the coaches, Saban himself, in a motorhome, sit in the parking lot, put up the Bama flag, and just say hello and goodbye as they walk through the parking lot. Hey, you want to come on over and talk? I just don't see how it's a big deal. It's just, I think it's kind of maybe a desperate attempt by the Big Ten to try to just gain some type of an advantage. But, the big scheme of things, I don't think it's anything, and I'd just like to get your comments.
No, listen, I completely agree. Thanks for the call, Brian. I do appreciate it. Jason is in Alabama. What's up, Jason?
Yeah, Paul, this is not much to do about nothing, man. You're telling me that a coach who can have 4 satellite camps in the state of Florida, and our coach can't even go to an all-star game where the kids are. Now, how is that fair when one coach can coach a kid as long as he has a satellite camp that the kid can make it to? If he has 4, he coaches him 4 days in a row. How is that fair for him to get quality all-day coaching time with a high-caliber player, and our coach doesn't get any?
Well, as I said a minute ago, the SEC, or anyone for that matter, ACC, will talk to Tebow Sweeney about this in the coming days. They can all change their standards and do it. I mean, this is not they're not on an island. They can go through the channels and get their fellow coaches and commissioners on board, can they not?
Yeah, but right now the coaches are handcuffed. It's all about the people in the administrative office, Paul. It has nothing to do with the coaches. It's against the rules for Nick Saban or any SEC or ACC coach to do this. It's
I'm
not
aware
like
of that.
they can do it and don't. It's against the rules, man. I mean, I don't see how anybody could say this is a fair mark across the board, man.
Well, we'll keep talking about it, but so far there's really not a lot of evidence that it's made a big impact, and maybe the hullabaloo will enact some change. Andy is up next in Tennessee. What's up, Andy?
Hey, Paul, how are you?
Okay, thank you.
I'm a first-time caller. I was just calling to see what you thought about all the hype with Butch Jones and the Tennessee Vols this year, and wondering what you thought they was going to do this year.
Andy, I think the hype is legitimate. This is not something that's happened overnight. It's been built now for 2 or 3 years. I think Butch Jones has recruited at an incredible rate. He's building a team. He has a good quarterback. Schedule is manageable, and I think it's real. Sometimes with hype, things can go bust, but I don't think that will happen. I think Tennessee is going to make a run in the upcoming season. I really do. Joe is up next. How are you, Joe?
Good, Paul. How you doing today, sir?
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Good. Just real quick here. I just want to state that, obviously this has got a lot of fans, especially in the South, on edge. Everyone's saying, oh, this is not a big deal. Don't worry about it. Well, obviously it's kind of a big deal because everyone's calling in. It's a hot topic, so obviously it's a big deal. I live in Alabama. I'm a Michigan fan. And I'm going to say that for the past decade, I've always thought that the SEC, and I'm going to admit this, Paul, the SEC has been the best conference in the past decade. I'm not going to deny that because I'm an intelligent man. But I also know this, that I believe the SEC have benefited from ESPN, who ESPN's out to make money, and they're going to show the best of the best. And ESPN's been showing SEC games televised prime time for the past decade. So if I'm a recruit and I'm looking at,
Hey, Joe, before you get carried away with that, ESPN also broadcasts the ACC and the Big Ten in prime time. So
when?
When? How about Saturday night? That's what Thursday night. What night do you want me to tell you about?
Now, down in the South over the past decade, every time I turn on ESPN prime time, it is SEC football.
Well, listen,
Always.
Joe, I'm not going to argue with you about something that I know you're wrong about. But if you look at
that's
Thursday
your
night,
opinion.
if you look
That's
at,
your
it's
opinion.
not an opinion.
Yeah,
if you watch
that's your
Thursday
opinion.
night
You
football,
can't tell me
you'll
I'm wrong,
see.
'cause
You'll
you're
see.
wrong, Paul.
If you let me finish.
People in the South are worried. You lost to Ohio State.
No, I'm just making a point to you, and obviously you're not willing to listen, Joe.
I'm telling you, SEC
Joe,
football is
please,
crumbling,
I appreciate it. My point is that the Big Ten and the ACC and all these other leagues are featured. The ACC is predominant on Thursday night. You may see one. I think this year you'll see 2 SEC games on Thursday night. You turn on prime time on ABC or ESPN. and you see the SEC on there quite a bit. You also see the Big Ten. You see the ACC. I mean, this is everyone's has deals with ESPN. We went through that this last year when the SEC network started. That was the SEC was somehow getting preferential treatment. The Big Ten has its own network. Now the SEC has its own network. The Pac-12 has its own network. Everyone has television deals with everyone else.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
Louis Riddick joins us, former NFL executive with the Eagles and, of course, ESPN's front office insider. Louis, thanks for the time as we get ready for the draft. So much conversation about SEC players, in particular Amari Cooper. We had him on the other day, and he is now projected to go as high as number 3 in the draft. Are you buying?
Absolutely, Paul. He is a dynamite, pro-ready type of wide receiver that really, when you look at his game from A to Z, from snap to finish, there really aren't any weaknesses. This is a guy who's very multifaceted in the number of positions he can play. He can play the X wide receiver, the Z wide receiver, or the flanker, or the E position in West Coast offense terminology, which is in the slot. And he excelled and won at all 3 of those positions. He can beat you short, intermediate, and deep. Great hands, great deep ball tracking skills, great route runner. And the most impressive thing for me from day one that I started throwing on his film, if you watch the first game against West Virginia, is what Amari can do after the catch. I made reference to the fact that he reminds me of Jerry Rice as far as how he runs the slant and then immediately does what in scouting terminology is he puts his foot in the ground and becomes a running back quickly. And he's just got it all. He was here up at ESPN a couple days ago. Great kid, A-plus character, so reserved, has a great head on his shoulders. You can't help but root for him. He should go very high, very, very high.
Certainly projected very high, as many others. Gurley seems to be making the biggest move coming off of that serious injury. What do you make out of him?
Yeah, Todd's got all of the skills that you want in the NFL as far as being able to be a workhorse running back. Obviously, his contributions in the passing game are something that need to be developed further. But the reason why you hear Todd's name coming back to the forefront now is once he went to the Combine Recheck physicals in Indianapolis, everyone started to feel much better about where he's at as far as his rehab is concerned and how quickly he could come back and play during the season. Some people feel as though he'd be ready to go early in the regular season. Obviously, most trainers and doctors feel as though once he is 12 months post-injury is when he will be at his best, or 12 months post-op, however you want to put it, is when he'll be at his best. But that is why you see his name starting to come back to the forefront now as someone who could sneak in there into the top 15 possibly, because no one's really worried about his rehab right now. Barring any kind of setback, people think that he is one of the better running backs to come along in quite a while.
Louis, it's been the question since we began talking about the draft, and that's Jameis Winston and Mariota. Still some more news coming out this week on Winston, although nothing seems to be able to stick to him right now. Any doubt in your mind he goes number 1?
Well, I guess, Paul, there's always a little bit of doubt because you really just don't know what Tampa Bay is really thinking. They're going to hold their cards very close to their chest. But this is a very unique situation with Jameis because at the top of the draft here at the number 1 pick, you've never had a guy who people pretty much consensusly feel as though he should be the number 1 pick have the type of stuff that is surrounding him from a character perspective. The only thing I will say is this. Whoever picks Jameis just has to make sure that at this point, I'm sure they've done all their due diligence and found out all the things that they can about Jameis. They just have to look internally and make sure that they have the necessary infrastructure as far as who is their offensive coordinator. Well, starting with their head coach, offensive coordinator, position coach, if they actually have a quarterback coach separate from the offensive coordinator. Who's the other quarterback in the quarterback room that could serve as a mentor, and all the other players surrounding him. And from what I've gathered down there in Tampa Bay, there's one name that just keeps sticking out for me from their coaching staff, Dirk Cutter, their new offensive coordinator, who I've heard is this dynamite with young players as far as being able to relate to them, instinctively feel what they need during the course of a football game when it matters. And who knows, if I was just going to put out there one thing that maybe could make Jameis very, very successful in Tampa, I'm hearing that Dirk Cutter could be that guy, so we'll see.
Yeah, former college football head coach out at Arizona State. Louis, let me ask you about the buzz of this week, and that has been Tim Tebow signing with your old team, the Eagles. It's not a new story in the NFL about whether Tebow can play or not, but what do you make out of this, and do you think he'll make it?
Yeah, I think if you want to just beat up Tim for not being a quality third down passer in the form of a Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers and Peyton Manning, well then, get in line. I mean, we've already seen that he's not that guy. I think what you have here now is a unique situation where you have a head coach who looks at roster building, that being Chip Kelly, much differently than the rest of the National Football League. Look, a lot of third quarterbacks in the NFL largely go unnoticed, are deactivated if teams even have 3 quarterbacks on their roster, and really don't play a prominent role as far as determining wins and losses. Chip is probably looking at it as, look, if I'm going to carry 3 quarterbacks and I'm going to have 3 of them active on game day, and this is the type of guy in situational football, which we talk about all the time in the NFL as being the difference between good teams and elite teams. If this is a guy who situationally in red zone and goal line could give me an advantage in the context of my offense, why wouldn't I look at it? I have nothing to lose here in the offseason, through training camp, through preseason, to see if to take a look at him and see if it's something that could help me. So I think you have to look at the specific situation. Let's not get bogged down in the fact that Tim has the worst QBR of any starting quarterback over the past 5 years and what his delivery looks like and all. Look, Chip's no dummy. He knows that Tim isn't that guy, and that's really not what he's looking at him for. He's looking at him for situational football. So I'm anxious to see. I'm a Chip Kelly fan. I don't necessarily agree with everything he does either, but Chip will challenge you as far as conventional wisdom and challenge you as far as things being done a certain way for a long time, and he wants to know, well, is there a better way? And if there is a better way, I'm going to try it.
You've been a director of player personnel in that organization. Help us understand what's on the board right now with the 4 quarterbacks and how you think it may shake out if Tebow does make it.
Yeah, well, really, I think it'll be Sam Bradford, Mark Sanchez, and if Tim makes it, it'll be because they feel as though he provides them a better return on their investment than Matt Barkley, which I don't think really will be hard for him to do at this point because from what I gather, Matt Barkley is not someone who really has a future in Philadelphia as far as what they're looking for. So I don't see, if Tim proves to be the kind of special weapon, the kind of special situational weapon, then it's a very easy decision for Chip Kelly to make as far as keeping him on their roster because I don't think Matt Barkley has pretty much shown them what they need to see as far as them making the decision on whether or not he's someone they want on their team in the long run. This is really up to Tim and whether or not he can seize the moment, more so than what Matt Barkley can do.
Finally, Michael Sam was the story of last year's draft, even though he barely got in under the wire on Saturday night. He'll join us here on the program, and he seems like the odd man left out right now, having been through 2 organizations. There's talk of Canada. Do you see any chance of him getting back in the NFL right now?
That's a good question. I think sometimes the NFL has a little bit of a herd mentality, and they feel as though if his skills weren't good enough in order for him to stick in St. Louis or in Dallas, that it's just a situation where, well, maybe he's just not good enough. And then also you have to give personnel departments their just due and say that they've done their due diligence as far as how Michael is as a football player and whether or not his skills translate. They've looked at the film that he has, and they're just going to make that determination, and whether it's Michael Sam or any other player, a lot of times, like I said, once personnel departments see that a guy has been given opportunities at multiple places and he wasn't able to stick, a lot of times, unfortunately, guys can just fall by the wayside until there's someone who comes along in a personnel department that will look at things differently and say, look, I don't really care what has happened to him previously as far as his inability to stick. I want to take one more look at him. So he's got an uphill battle, in front of him, but you never know. I just don't think the prospects are very good, unfortunately.
Louis Riddick joining us, the front office insider for ESPN. Louis, many thanks. Good to talk to you.
You bet. Thank you.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
Rich is next in Atlanta. What's up, Rich?
Hi, Paul. Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you.
Hey, Paul, I've been thinking about this satellite camp stuff, and I got a theory, and as always, I could be wrong. But could there be an alternative motive here? Which Big Ten program wasn't mentioned? Which one are they all chasing?
Ohio State.
Absolutely. Whose model is 80% regional and then supplementing the additional 20% from the SEC footprint? I mean, think about the game last year. Ezekiel Elliott, where was he from? Missouri, right? St. Louis, I think. The kid that made the killer interception, Von Bell, he was from here, and he chose Ohio State over Alabama. The quarterback that got hurt, right? Texas, Barrett. Boza, the All-American defensive end. Florida. The linebacker, McMillan, number one player in the state here. Ohio State over Auburn. So I'm just thinking, yes, I understand the encroachment on the conference, but maybe Franklin and Harbaugh and Florence and whoever else are thinking, hey, this is the guy we got to beat. This is the model. How do we penetrate into the area, the most fertile recruiting area? What do you think?
I mean, I agree with everything you said, but to me, Rich, this is a solvable issue. The SEC or anyone else, for that matter, can rectify their situation. It's really not that difficult.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that angle. But isn't all of the power programs, aren't they all national now, really?
They are, but let me say this. I just, as someone who has been accused by many around the country of being the flag waver for the SEC, I realize where this show is seen every day, but I just think Saban and others look fairly petty when they start complaining about something that the Big Ten is doing. That's not really a way to end this conversation about the Big Ten either nipping at the SEC's heels or having surpassed it.
Right. No, and I agree. And you brought up, it was brought up last year, and both commissioners, outgoing and incoming, have said something about it, and they're going to discuss it, and I think, like you said, they're going to solve it. Because I thought it had something to do with a 50-mile radius. I don't know the whole issue, but I'm with you when it comes down to it. It's much ado about nothing. But I still think that there's an alternative motive with Harbaugh, with Franklin, to chase Meyer, to do what Meyer's doing, and to somehow get the foothold.
No, I think you're right about it. Rich,
Yeah.
I think you've broken the code, and I think Saban and others would be better just to shrug their shoulders because it really Jim Harbaugh has no chance of catching Nick Saban in recruiting, but his goal is to catch Urban Meyer.
Right, exactly. Hey, real quick, Paul, thanks again, but real quick, regarding Tebow and Bradford, do you ever know of an NFL roster that had two Heisman Trophy winners on the same team? I've been thinking about this. It drives me crazy. Was Staubach still in Dallas when they got Anthony Dorsett? Could you ever remember two Heisman winners on the same roster?
I'm pretty sure Roger Staubach had retired by the time Tony Dorsett got there. I could be wrong. I'm sure it's happened. I mean, I can't believe that it hasn't. I'll have to go back in history and think about it, but I bet it has.
Yeah, I agree with that, but it's never been the same position being quarterback, and certainly never back-to-back years. But anyway, Thanks for taking my call. See you, buddy.
It seems like if any team would have made that happen, it would have been the Raiders. They've had so many from Bo Jackson, Tim Brown, Leinart, others. So I mean, that's my best guess, but not something I've really ever given much thought to.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
Geico presents Strange Savings Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
Hugh is up next in Oxford, Mississippi. Hey, Hugh.
Hey, Paul. How are you doing today?
I'm well. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. We just wanted to tell you how excited we are to have you come speak to the commencement service of our law school.
Wow, this sounds pretty like thank you for the comment. This sounds like a pretty familiar voice if I'm listening closely.
You're too smart, Paul. This is Coach Freeze.
Coach, thank you. I really we have never had a call from a head football coach before. But back to your question and comment, I'm really looking forward to it. It's 2 weeks from this weekend. I'm coming to Oxford to speak at commencement for the law school, and I have to ask you as a coach. I need some coaching because it's a pretty nerve-wracking thought. Do you have any advice?
Oh man, that would be totally out of my element in regards to the law school, but I'm certain that you can come up with something in regards to leadership skills.
I will tell you this, Coach, and I don't want to give the speech away, but I have worked on it. There will be a reference to your team pretty early on in this speech. So, and I think it will be a crowd pleaser if you catch my drift.
Well, I think right now everybody's feeling pretty good about what we've got going on, so that'll get you off on the right foot, hopefully.
How are things going?
They're going good, man. We're actually riding down the road in our Rebel Road Trip RV and watching you on the TV here and enjoying your show. And we're hitting all the alumni groups across the state and having a great time.
How, I realize this is the time of the year. How long does this go on?
We started Sunday, and we'll finish up tomorrow. So we've had a full week of it.
Well, I can only imagine. I know that you're getting a lot of questions. When you go from town to town, what's the number one question? I have a feeling it may concern the quarterback situation.
You can. I think we've done about 12 different stops, and the first question after our speak is, I think, been 12 for 12. Who's our quarterback going to be?
Any closer to an answer?
No, I think it will go well into fall camp, if not into the beginning of the season, before we kind of decide who's the best leader of our team.
I do realize you called me, and I appreciate it very much. But I would like to ask you a question. We were talking earlier about this hullabaloo in relation to the satellite camps. I'm sure you're well aware of that. Where do you think the SEC is on that right now, and can it be rectified?
Well, I think we're all in a unified front that we're not in favor of them. It's certainly I don't think that's something that is really a road we want to go down, and you know we've done that for years here, and obviously it's an area that we've got to talk about when we get to our spring meetings. But you know, we'd be in favor of just keeping the SEC rule as a national rule, which is you run your camps on your own campus.
That makes a lot of sense. Well, Coach, number one, I can't thank you enough for calling, and I've been to almost a couple of times in recent months, but I have really been looking forward to this. A Saturday in May at the Grove sounds like a pretty good combination to me.
Well, we look forward to having you as always, and hopefully I'll get to see you when you're there.
I look forward to it. Thank you very much, Coach. Really nice of you to call.
Thanks, Paul.
You bet. Coach Hugh Freeze from the University of Mississippi, Ole Miss, calling us, catching us a little bit off guard. If you didn't catch the meeting of the beginning of it, I'm speaking 2 weeks from Saturday at the Ole Miss Law School commencement, and he was just mentioning that, and didn't give much away, though, on the quarterback situation as he goes from town to town. Anyway, that was really cool. Thanks, Coach. Appreciate it.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
Josh is next in Arkansas. Hey, Josh. Thanks for the phone call.
Hey, Paul. I appreciate you taking me today.
You bet.
I just wanted to get your unbiased opinion. You know, the only coverage that Arkansas fans are really getting right now are in-state commentators, and I wanted to get your opinion about Arkansas's chances at possibly representing the West in the SEC championship this year, with LSU and Alabama maybe struggling a little bit.
Well, let me warn you, Josh, before you get too far on that thought. Alabama may be struggling in relation to a couple of years ago, but Alabama will still be I think a top 5 pick. And I don't think Auburn will be very far behind them. So as far as LSU, I think that's a legitimate team. That's a legitimate conversation. I mean, if you look at the SEC West, I mean, this is a projection here. Right? That's all we can do. And by the way, our projections don't necessarily mean that they're correct. But I would say that if you flip this calendar ahead to the second week in July, when we're at the SEC Media Days, I think the media will vote Alabama number 1 and Auburn number 2. Some believe it will be flipped. I'm just making a wild guess that it will be Alabama versus Auburn. I'm not even sure I know which way I would go yet. After that, it is when it becomes very interesting. Who will be the third team? And I think all bets are on the table. I think Arkansas has a shot at that. I think LSU certainly has a shot at that. I think the better prospects are probably Ole Miss. So I think Arkansas is really fighting now from a media perception standpoint. That's all I'm talking about. Probably for fourth place or maybe fifth. I mean, you know, the 7 SEC West schools were in bowl games. We all know that. So it's really hard to figure out, I think, after 1 and 2.
Okay. Yeah, I want the Alabama fans to know I'm not dissing Alabama. You can't really argue with what they've done. So,
well, and by the way, I think if you're looking at a buzz meter, we all know about Tennessee hype, but I think Arkansas is another school that is creating a great deal of hype. I think if you look at the schedule, and I'll try to call it up here in a moment, you have to be realistic. To me, Arkansas. What would the 2 toughest games of the year be in the SEC? I would say they would be Alabama and Auburn. You have Auburn at home. Last year, Arkansas had to open at Auburn. That was a tough spot. The first SEC game is a Jerry World against A&M. That game almost went your way last year. You have to think it might go. And then at Tennessee. I mean, you talk about an important game for hype. You tell me, you think you can beat Tennessee in Knoxville?
I don't know. It's going to be a rough one. We've done it before, but these are two new teams that haven't really had a lot of contact with each other. So I think it'll be a good game. I hope Arkansas wins.
Yeah, I mean, let's say Arkansas beats A&M, and then you're at Tennessee, at Alabama. I mean, that's murderer's row, and then Auburn at home. Somewhere in that Tennessee, Alabama, and Auburn game, you're going to have to turn. You're going to have to turn one of those games. Auburn would likely be the easiest at home, and then you're at Ole Miss, which I think is a little bit under the radar screen, and then you're at LSU, Mississippi State, and Missouri. I'll go on record, Josh, as saying I'm not really crazy about the SEC schedule.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to leave just one more question. I'll hang up and listen. I appreciate it.
And the reason I say that is that you obviously, I mean, you have Missouri. We know that. But going to Tennessee, I think you could have gone to Vanderbilt instead. It would have been a lot better.
I would have felt better. I'm hopeful though. But with Coach Bielema and the type of caliber of players that he's recruiting in, where he doesn't necessarily go for the greatest player, but he goes for the player that wants to play the most and coach up. What do you see the future of the program under Bielema?
I think the future of the program is superb. I think Bielema is a great coach. I think he's done just about everything right. He turned last season around, and I'll be surprised if this program isn't flying high. But it will take a little while. Don't forget, last year we were trying to figure out what SEC game Arkansas could possibly win. And when we looked at the schedule before the year, there wasn't an automatic. That turned around quite well.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
ESPN Radio.
With the action on the court, the diamond, or the gridiron.
Comes alive.
The NBA.
The San Antonio Spurs are the world champions.
Major League Baseball.
San Francisco Giants are the champions of the baseball world.
The new college football playoff.
College football playoff national champion, the Ohio State Buckeyes.
You're home for the best in sports play-by-play.
ESPN Radio.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
Carolyn is in Gulfport, Mississippi. What's up, Carolyn?
Yes, Paul. I'm glad I finally got through to you. Called you several times, more than several times. I'm a Mississippi girl. But I'm an LSU fan. I agree with a gentleman you were just talking to from Natchitoches. This should be an SEC channel. I would like to hear a lot more about the accolades that LSU has gotten. I know that our football season is iffy, but we are number one in baseball. That could change tonight. I realize that. We're number 2 nationally in gymnastics. We are 3 in women's softball. The golf team just won the SEC, and no one, and that includes you and your channel and Fox and ESPN, ever talks about the good things that LSU does.
Well, let me say that, Carolyn, let me say this. I mean, this network that I'm on has a program most every night of the week that's devoted to how schools do in all of those sports. And
I have seen it. I watch you all the time.
No, I'm not. I'm not talking about. I'm talking about a show that comes on after hours. It's a news show. This program, and I'm not making excuses. It is a call-in show, and sometimes the calls will dictate where we go. But we're not looking to ignore LSU. We've had conversations about LSU football. We've had Coach Jones on quite a few times in relation to basketball. And the point is that LSU is in a very interesting spot, and I'm not sure where to say it's going. I've said it to several callers already tonight that I think Les Miles is in the crosshairs right now. He needs a big season.
And I totally agree, but that was not my issue.
No, I know. I heard what your issue was.
That where we are, am I happy about it? No, I'm already sad, depressed, and a few other things about our football season. But I am just saying that no one talks about the accolades that we should be getting for where we are in baseball.
No, listen, I heard you, but my point is, Carolyn,
let me just finish. Let me finish. And the other things that LSU does, I don't understand. LSU is berated and belittled on virtually every station, whether they're even doing good in football or not.
Well, I would respectfully disagree with you. We have Marcus Spears on all the time. We had him on the other day talking about LSU. We had Booger McFarland on, another former All-American. So, I mean, listen, I don't mind your criticism. That's fine. We had Ben McDonald on, a former All-American LSU pitcher the other day. So, I mean, I understand your frustration on the football side, but I can't sit here and let you say that we don't talk about all those other things, because we do. But thank you very much for your call. Debbie is up next. How are you, Debbie?
Hi, Paul. You as sexy as ever. I heard your call with Linda. God love her. She's been such a good friend to me without us ever even meeting. And hi, Mark, and hi, John. I'm bedridden, so I can't do anything, and you are the highlight of my day.
Well, I am pleased to hear that.
I don't even have to take my medication when you're on, because you're so intoxicating.
Well, that is great news. And by the way, I hope the rehab is coming along well.
Well, they won't let me start it for another 5 weeks. He wants me in bed, flat on my back, with my ankle and leg propped up over my heart. So it's going to be a long haul, but you're going to be there for me.
Well, we hope to be.
I can watch you every day, and this satellite thing, I think it's like I'm with you. It's a bunch about a nothing, and I hope Tebow does great. I've always been a fan of his, even when he played for Florida. He's a cutie pie. Not as cute as you, though. So,
well, Debbie, do this. We had, Linda called earlier. Continued success with the rehab. I do appreciate it, and I hope I know it won't be easy. By the way, to the lady that called in about the LSU golf team, they did win the SEC Sunday with a 3-shot win over South Carolina and Vanderbilt. And highlights of that, a week from last night at 10 p.m., you can watch all the highlights of LSU's SEC championship right here on the SEC network. Let's check in with Jerry in East Tennessee. How are you, Jerry? Thanks for the call.
What's going on, Paul?
Doing great. Thank you.
Paul, I'm going to tell you, I done read today the ball colonel says that Joshua Dobbs is going to have one of the best seasons in the history of Tennessee football. And I tell you what, Paul, we are coming back. I mean, we've been down for far too long. We got the right man at the helm.
Hey, Jerry, let me interrupt for a second. I hope you're right. Josh Dobbs has star written all over him, but you realize Peyton Manning played at Tennessee, don't you?
Paul, I've been around since the dirt, and you know, I tell you what the guy was getting across is he was going to have one of the best seasons. You know, I know Peyton had some great years. You know, Heath Schuler, Carter Holloway. We've had some great quarterbacks down here, but this system seems to fit this kid really well, and I just see big things. I tell you what, the people in the East better get ready because the Volunteers are coming all the way back, and we're going to dominate the East, Paul. And I tell you another thing, Paul, I need to send you a picture of me. I see all these other folks on there. I'm pretty as any of them, baby.
Well, let us have it. Thanks for the call. Man, let's go to Jerome next in Birmingham. Hey, Jerome.
What's going on, Paul?
Oh, well.
Hey, listen, man. To that lady in LSU, the LSU fan, listen to me. Don't nobody give a crap about her LSU fans. This is the Alabama network, Paul. It's the Alabama. It's not the SEC network. It's the Alabama channel, Finebaum. You hear me? You can mute everybody in the nation, Finebaum. Just get up in the morning, just say something negative or something positive about Alabama, and you'll have a award-winning show, Paul. You got that? You got the best show in the country. Go jump in the bayou. Don't nobody give a crap about you, nor the LSU fans. Now, listen, well, let me ask you something. When little Nicky talking about this satellite recruit, let me ask you a question. If Michigan did a satellite camp right now today in Northport, Alabama, how would it affect Tuscaloosa and Alabama, Paul?
I don't think it'd have a big effect.
Okay, let me ask you something. Tell little Nicky he need to worry about Alabama. He need to stop the Crimson Caravan, Paul. He need to stop the golf tournament. Send Mark Ingram back to New Orleans, let him figure out how to hold on to the New Orleans Saints tailback, and he need to fix the Crimson Tide championship problem. He ain't got time to worry about no recruiting. Roll Tide, have a good day.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
A couple of minutes ago, a lady called from Louisiana and said we never talk about LSU, and we just don't, because we don't like LSU people. We don't like former LSU All-Americans to ever grace this program. Right, Swagoo?
What's up, brother?
How are you, Marcus?
I'm glad you let me through, man. I'm glad you let me through.
Well, I'm glad you made it. Really, we've been wondering about you with all this. We had Michael Sam on, all the Tebow conversation. So what's going on?
Nah, man. Obviously, I've had a million questions about Timmy, and I kind of wanted to let the radio waves and the television waves settle down before me and you dove into a deep conversation about it. So I was just respecting other people's time, man.
Yeah, well, let me, before we even get to that, let me get your take on the LSU Tigers. You were in the booth on Saturday doing the spring game. I thought you were, John Gruden better watch out after listening to you do a football game. You're heading for Monday Night Football as fast as possible. So what did you see down on the field?
Man, I thought they had a great spring game. I thought the competition was great. The guys that were expected to be standouts absolutely were. They have a solid team, man. And, the big question and the elephant in the room for LSU is how is the quarterback play going to be? And more than those guys throwing for a lot of yards and completing a bunch of passes, I think they just had better command of the offense. Both Jennings and Harris, I don't think either one of them separated themselves from the other. But what they did do was they showed more pocket presence. They're passing, the rhythm of the offense, the way guys responded, the direction in the huddle, and the command in the huddle from both of them was impressive to me. And that's something that you didn't see a lot last year. And, when you're looking at a football game, you're determining if a quarterback is real good based off how many yards he throws for, how many touchdowns, and the success that he has throughout that game. But when you get deep down into football and you start
trying to dissect how guys are setting themselves apart, especially when you're in a battle to see who will be the starter. You know, I really paid attention to the command of the huddle and just knowing the offense, knowing where to go with the football. And both of those guys improved. Their throwing motion has improved just because they worked on it all season, Paul. And the rhythm in the pocket, stepping into throws as opposed to trying to be on the run. They're going through 1 and 2 reads before they're taking off running. And that's just maturity at the position. And, you know, we talked to Cam Cameron a lot, and that's what he wanted to see. And I think they got a heavy dose of that throughout the game. So I thought they did a phenomenal job. And the playmakers around them are unbelievable. I mean, they have their old vintage LSU with a bunch of guys that can make plays. The receivers did a great job. Malachi Dupree, Travis Durrell, and this kid DJ Chark that's actually starting now at the X position. All of them perform well, and we know what Leonard Fournette is. And Darrell Williams, the backup running back, it's going to be a heavy load of offense for teams to defend this year. They did a great job. If they get that passing game figured out from the quarterback position, it'll be a really good team. And the defense is fast, big, physical. They have a bunch of guys that can run all over the field and make plays and play multiple positions. So I think that's going to be an advantage for them. And so they look good as a team. And, you know, everybody looks good in the spring, P-Town, because you're not playing anybody.
Swaggy, let me ask you about Tebow. Certainly he is in camp now and going through the OTAs. What do you hear?
You know, I hadn't heard anything about how he's performing, but, you know, we talked about this when the first initial workout happened, and I don't know if you remember me saying, but, you know, I thought this was a real thing. The fact that Tim has been out of football for more than a year, it's so difficult to get back in the NFL once you've been out. And I don't know if people really appreciate the amount of time and effort and work ethic he put in to get back in this position. This doesn't guarantee he makes the roster, but to even be in camp right now says a lot about him. And from a football standpoint, I just think this system fits him. They can do so many other things than have him just be a straight drop-back passer and try to deliver the ball to receivers. And I think he's become a better thrower, and that's based off what I've seen. Now, I had never scouted a quarterback to see if he's gotten better ever, but, you know, I know from what they talked about his throwing motion, that improved tremendously just by us throwing at the indoor at the University of Tennessee. So it's just a lot of things that works well for him. And being that Chip Kelly is pretty much a college-minded coach that's coaching in the NFL, he's not really afraid to mix it up and do a lot of different things offensively. And I think that's advantageous for Tim in some of the packages that he may be able to present for him to have success.
We, as we wrap up, we had Michael Sam on right before you. He doesn't seem to be going anywhere right now in the NFL after getting let go by St. Louis and Dallas. Why do NFL teams, or why are they staying away from him?
Paul, you know why they're staying away from him, and I really feel like his lifestyle is a reason why he's not on the football team. In order to be the defensive player of the year in the SEC, you are a really good football player, and you have an insurmountable amount of talent that you can offer to an NFL team. And everybody wants to sugarcoat it and talk about, you know, he may not cut it as a player. He's good enough to play in the NFL. I played in it 9 years, and he has a lot of talent that I've seen a lot of guys have long careers in the NFL have the ability to play. He has that. And I think it's unfortunate that, you know, the way he chooses to live his life plays into the decision of him playing in the NFL. And I give kudos to the St. Louis Rams because they drafted a football player, and he may have not made that team because it was a host of talent on that defensive line, and he may not been able to crack, you know, that roster spot in order to play for them. But it's a lot of teams out there that need defensive linemen that he can help. And it's a premium on pass rushers, every single Sunday in the National Football League, and he's proven that he can do that throughout his preseason and the games that he had an opportunity to play in. And Dallas brought him in, and that situation was tough to crack. I think the right team, giving him an opportunity, he can make the most of an NFL career. I just think it's unfortunate that the life he chooses to live is a part of the decision of him making a football team. It's tough.
Marcus, hold the thought right there. We're going to continue this in just one moment.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
Back with the big swagoo, just kind of hanging out. Some pretty strong comments on Michael Sam and Tim Tebow. We also heard from Hugh Freeze earlier. Marcus, outside of doing the game, what else happened in Baton Rouge? I mean, give us some backstory.
Well, man, actually I had so much fun, man. It was my first time working with Peter Burns for an extended period of time. We enjoyed ourselves. He had some Louisiana ties, and Kaylee had us over. They brought in 150 pounds of crawfish. Her stepdad, Larry, cooked. Mom gave me hugs and kisses and made sure that I had all of my sheets washed and my clothes were folded. So it was a great weekend, man. I had a chance to go see my pops. We started up his '69 Camaro and took it for a cruise. Kissed my grandmother, but it was a great week. A lot of work, a lot of coverage on LSU, but I enjoyed being in Baton Rouge. It's home, man. So
what was it like to actually do the game? I know you've done a lot of things this year, but never an actual game.
It was great, man. It was fast. Now it was fast paced, and my critique was we have to shorten the analysis a little bit so we can get back into the game. That was the one thing, but I enjoyed it, man. It was watching the game for a purpose. So I had a bunch of fun, and Adam Amin was the play-by-play guy, and he eased me into that thing, man. And once we got rolling, there was no looking back. So I enjoy that phase of it. I hope I can, and look forward to doing some more of them.
Well, one of these days, the two of us need to get in the booth, and we just forget the game and just have a conversation about life.
P-Town, they'll tell people to put us on another channel so they can just tune in and listen to us, bro. Forget the game. There's some good stuff going on with these two guys.
No doubt. Marcus Spears, nice enough to stick around for a few more moments with us. Marcus, thanks, and we will see you very soon. Always good to catch up.
All right, my man. Y'all take it easy and tell Cube and John to do something.
Not easy to do, but thanks for the heads up. Good to hear from you.
Thank you for listening to the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast. Tune into the Paul Finebaum Show every day from 3 to 7 Eastern on the SEC Network or on the ESPN Radio app. Baseball's best go head-to-head in interleague action when the Tigers head to St. Louis to face the Cardinals. That one is gone. The pregame at 7 Eastern, first pitch at 8, Sunday on ESPN and ESPN Radio.